The Galactic Council had watched Earth for 300 years. They studied humans from their observation stations hidden behind the moon. They recorded everything. They measured human strength, speed, and intelligence. The results disappointed them greatly. Commander of the Empire stood before the council. His gray skin reflected the blue lights of the chamber. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he presented his findings. Humans are remarkably weak, he announced. They cannot survive in extreme temperatures. They need constant water and food. Their bodies break easily. One fall can kill them. One disease can destroy millions. They fight among themselves over small pieces of land. They are emotional creatures who make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. The council members nodded their massive heads, though with their armored bodies, laughed at human fragility. They whose minds could calculate 1,000 possibilities in seconds dismissed human intelligence as primitive. They who lived for thousands of years saw humans as creatures who died before they could learn anything meaningful. They are not worthy of joining the galactic community, concluded. They pose no threat. They offer nothing of value. I recommend we ignore them completely. The council voted unanimously. Earth was labeled a primitive world. Humans were classified as a weak species destined for eventual extinction. The galaxy moved on and forgot about the small blue planet. But the Empire made a terrible mistake. 20 years later, a mining fleet discovered valuable minerals on a moon near Earth. The commander of this fleet was a young officer eager to prove himself. He decided to use Earth as a source of labor. His scanners showed him a small human settlement in northern Canada. It was isolated. It was defenseless. It was perfect. The settlement was called Pine Ridge. 300 humans lived there. They were miners, teachers, doctors, and farmers. They had children who played in the snow. They had elderly people who told stories by warm fires. They had families who loved each other deeply. Sent his soldiers at midnight. The warriors were 7 feet tall. Their armor could stop bullets. Their weapons could turn stone into dust. They expected no resistance. They found something unexpected instead. A man named David Miller was the first to see the alien ships. He was checking on his daughter, Emma, who was sleeping in her small bed. She was 7 years old. She had her mother's red hair and her father's stubborn spirit. When David saw the lights in the sky, his heart stopped for a moment. Then something ancient woke up inside him. He did not run. He did not hide. He grabbed his hunting rifle and walked outside. The soldiers laughed when they saw him. One human with a primitive weapon against 50 armored warriors, watched from his ship and felt amused. "Surrender," a soldier commanded. "You will work for the Empire. Resistance is foolish." David did not answer with words. He answered with action. He shot the first soldier directly in his exposed eye socket. The alien fell dead. The other soldiers froze in shock. No human was supposed to fight back. No human was supposed to be this accurate. No human was supposed to be this brave. But David was not fighting for himself. He was fighting for Emma. He was fighting for his wife Sarah. He was fighting for his neighbors and their children. Something in his blood remembered 1,000 generations of ancestors who had protected their families against impossible dangers. The gunshot woke the entire settlement. Within minutes, every adult in Pine Ridge was armed. They had hunting rifles. They had axes. They had kitchen knives. They had farming tools. They had nothing that should threaten armored alien soldiers. They had something far more powerful. They had families to protect. Sarah Miller stood next to her husband. She had never fired a gun in her life. Tonight, she did not miss a single shot. Old Thomas Reed, who was 73 years old and walked with a cane, took down 2 soldiers with a shotgun before they could reach the children's shelter. Maria, a schoolteacher who taught poetry and art, used a fire axe to defend 12 children hiding in the community center. Watched in growing horror. His soldiers were dying, not from advanced weapons, not from military training. They were dying because every human in this settlement had become something terrifying. Their fear had transformed into rage. Their weakness had become strength. Their love had become violence. The battle lasted 4 hours. When the sun rose over Pine Ridge, 47 soldiers were dead. The humans had lost 11 of their own, but not a single child had been taken. Not a single family had been broken. Retreated, his hands were shaking. His 4 eyes were wide with terror. He had seen something that changed his understanding of the universe. He had seen a mother kill 3 soldiers with her bare hands because they had tried to enter the room where her baby was sleeping. He had seen an old man, already shot twice, crawl toward an alien soldier and stab him in the throat because that soldier was walking toward the school. He had seen teenagers form a protective circle around younger children and fight with rocks and sticks against enemies who had weapons that could destroy buildings. He had seen humans do the impossible because the alternative was losing someone they loved. His report to the Galactic Council was very different from Commander's assessment. He stood in the same chamber, under the same blue lights, but his words painted a completely different picture of humanity. "We were wrong," he said, his voice still shaking. "We measured the wrong things. We looked at human bodies and saw weakness. We should have looked at human hearts and seen fire. Humans are not strong when they fight for themselves, but when they fight for their families, they become something else entirely. They become unstoppable." The council members were skeptical. The demanded proof, showed them the recordings. He showed them Sarah Miller, a woman who weighed 130 pounds, throwing a 200-pound alien soldier through a wooden wall. He showed them David Miller taking 7 bullets and still fighting until his daughter was safe. He showed them the impossible made real by love. "I have studied many species across this galaxy," continued. "I have seen the who live for. I have seen the who think faster than computers. I have seen the whose bodies can survive in the vacuum of space. But I have never seen anything like humans protecting their families." He paused and looked at each council member. They do not calculate the odds. They do not consider their survival. When their children are in danger, they simply decide that they will not allow harm to come to them. And then the universe bends to their will. Logic does not apply. Physics does not apply. The rules we understand do not apply. The council was silent. "We called them weak because they need each other. We called them primitive because they form emotional bonds. But those bonds are their greatest weapon. A single human is indeed fragile, but a human fighting for family is the most dangerous creature in this galaxy." The Empire from Earth's solar system immediately. They sent a message of apology to the human governments. They offered trade instead of conquest. They treated humanity with respect and fear. Word spread across the galaxy. Other species came to observe humans. They watched human parents working extra jobs to feed their children. They watched human siblings defending each other in schoolyards. They watched human grandparents sacrificing their comfort for future generations. They watched human communities coming together when one family was in trouble. The aliens did not understand it at first. They could not comprehend why a parent would die for a child they had only known for a few years. They could not calculate the logic of sacrificing oneself for someone who might not even remember the sacrifice. They could not understand why short-lived creatures would waste their limited time caring for others. But slowly, something changed in the galaxy. Species that had conquered hundreds of worlds began to reconsider their methods. Empires that had seen other beings as resources started to see them as potential family. The Galactic Council added a new criterion for evaluating species. They did not just measure strength and intelligence anymore. They measured love. Years later, when humanity finally joined the galactic community, they brought something new to the table. They taught other species about family dinners and bedtime stories. They showed them the power of holding hands during difficult times. They demonstrated that vulnerability was not weakness, but the foundation of true strength. Commander, who had originally dismissed humans as worthless, lived long enough to see his own species transform. They began forming family units. They began caring for their young instead of abandoning them to survival trials. They began to understand what they had been missing for 1 million years. In his final report before retirement, wrote something that would be taught to every species in the galaxy. We searched the stars for the strongest species. We found them on a small blue planet, but their strength was not in their muscles or their weapons or their technology. Their strength was in their love. Humans taught us that true power comes from having something worth fighting for, and nothing is worth more than family. On Earth, in a rebuilt Pine Ridge, Emma Miller was now grown. She had children of her own. She told them the story of the night the aliens came. She told them about their grandfather David, who stood alone against an army. She told them about their grandmother Sarah, who became a warrior to protect what she loved. Her children listened with wide eyes. Then they asked the question that every child asks. "Were you scared, Mama?" Emma smiled and pulled them close. She remembered that night. She remembered the sounds of battle outside her window. She remembered her father's face when he came back to her, wounded but alive. "The aliens were scared," she said. "They learned something that night. They learned that you can take everything from a human. You can take their home. You can take their possessions. You can take their safety. But the moment you threaten their family, you have made the worst enemy in the universe." Her children nodded, understanding something deep and ancient in their small hearts. Outside their window, stars filled the sky. Ships from 100 different worlds passed by in peace. The galaxy had changed because one small settlement of humans had shown them what true strength looked like. It looked like a parent standing between danger and their child. It looked like love refusing to surrender. It looked like family. And in the end, that was the most terrifying thing the universe had ever seen.